Hello friends, hope you're well. It has been an interesting week here in Western Australia. A sudden lockdown for 5 days, supermarket shenanigans again, and of course, mask deniers getting fined and taken to jail. It has certainly been fun, but not as fun as what's been going on in the tech world. Welcome to this week's Dirt Report, weekly tech and telco news from all around Australia and some international tidbits. We have some great stories for you today, so make sure to like this video and subscribe, and if you'd like to support us, you can tap on the join button below. Today we have Microsoft Bing stepping up for Australia, Google realizing they ain't going to win, and Bianco stops taking orders for HFC, Telstra is in the doghouse again, and a new Mustang with an E. Thanks for jumping in, let's roll the intro. Google is still fighting Australia and its media code, but new players are joining the battle, and as nature has it, when a giant leaves, there is a big vacuum, and there is always somebody else to fill in and take their place. And it's the same case here. With all the back and forth, the threat of pulling Google search out of Australia is starting to get really boring, and people will find alternatives, and companies will step up to fill that void left by Google. In this case, Microsoft has stepped up and put their hand up to assist Australia with Bing. Microsoft President Brad Smith released a statement on Monday confirming he and the company's chief executive, Satya Nadella, had spoken with Scotty from marketing and our favorite communications minister, Paul Fletcher. They discussed their proposal and said Microsoft fully supports the code and will work with Australia to improve their search and maintain that code. Here is what Brad Smith had to say. The code reasonably attempts to address the bargaining power imbalances between digital platforms and Australia's news businesses. It also recognizes the important role search plays not only to consumers but to the thousands of Australian small businesses that rely on search and advertising technology to fund and support their organizations. He also wanted to remind people that with every search, Bing gets better at finding what you are looking for. We believe that the current legislative proposal represents a fundamental step towards a more level playing field and a fairer digital ecosystem for consumers, businesses, and society. And that's it. No matter how big you are, you can always get replaced by another service. It's a scenario we see with many companies day in, day out. A new incumbent comes in, the other one's too big to fall. Those who think they are too big to fall usually tend to fall bigger, and not changing the business model to adapt to the changing landscape is one of their mistakes. It's not to say that this landscape is better, it's just changing. The reality is that Google and Facebook do wield a substantial amount of power, but not necessarily more than a country. Not yet, anyway. Bing has always been second best to Google, but for them it's a huge opportunity. If Google search leaves, Microsoft will have a country-size reason to improve and build upon their search engine, and maybe ultimately match Google's search. After all, when most people get 80% of what they need, they will deal with the 20% that might cause them inconveniences. Now, businesses should also see an uplift in advertising if Bing becomes the default search engine in Australia, as they swap over to advertise on there, and there will be less competition with overseas businesses. For the first little while anyway. Let me know below, would you happily swap over to Bing if in a year or so it becomes as good as Google search and abides by the media code? Will that be a reason for you to change? But let's continue on this topic. On the other side, Google has now brought online the news showcase into Australia. Why it took them this long to do it is kind of beyond me, but I think they expected Australia to back down earlier and now are just throwing things and seeing what sticks. Personally, I don't mind seeing Google get taken down a notch anyway, and the fear of Bing becoming the go-to search engine in the country that makes Google $4 billion per year should be scaring them pretty well. Like they say, there's always another day, or what's the other one? There is always a bigger fish. Something like that, I'm sure, fits in. The release of the news showcase comes one day after Microsoft had that call with Scotty, so the timing is peculiarly perfect. I'm sure they have a lot more cards under the sleeve, but this just shows that Google Australia is not doing everything they can to work this out. If they did, they would have released this a lot earlier, preemptively. They're not really doing their best. While they make some good points on what could happen, that was based on no alternatives to Google search. So fundamentally, they now have very little to grasp at, and this fight is going to get much more interesting. So what is this news showcase? In the blog post, Kate Bordeaux, Google's head of news, web and publishing product partnerships for APAC, said, "Starting today, a growing number of Australian publishers, leading examples of the best of local and regional journalism, will be paid to provide content for News Showcase. Panels on News Showcase display an enhanced view of the article or articles, giving participating publishers more ways to bring important news to readers and explain in their own voice, along with many direct control of presentation and branding. The panels will appear across Google News on Android, iOS, and the mobile web, and in Discovery on iOS, bringing high-value traffic to a publisher's site. We also plan to bring News Showcase to Search, as well as the other surfaces of Google News and Discover in the future. Each article linked in News Showcase panel takes the reader directly to a corresponding page on a publisher's site, allowing publishers to further grow their businesses by showing users ads and subscriptions opportunities. This sounds like Google Search with extra steps. Will it be enough to appease Australia? Unlikely, as the ACCC still stands by its code and Google has yet to respond to that directly. And neither has ACCC had a chance to respond to Google's News Showcase. On the blog post, Google outlines the analytics side of the app. Here is what they said. Publishers are already able to get analytics on their content in a variety of Google products, and in the coming months they'll be able to learn even more with News Showcase, metrics on Search Console. This means publishers will have more data to better understand which articles and topics interest readers the most. This is Google's alternative to giving publishers information about their algorithm changes. After all, it's not only just their IP, but it's ridiculously fluid and always changing. Google at this stage doesn't even know what their own algorithm does, neither does Facebook. Hence, we have already been taken over by machines, just not in the way we imagined. Why would machines need to build physical killing machines where they can make us docile with cat videos and we would feed them willingly with power? In any case, Google's position is slowly fading, and as more reasons as to why Google should stick around falters, we may see Google come to the table with better offers. Like I said before, I'm excited to see this because I'm still on the fence. Google shouldn't be dictating what countries do, but Google shouldn't be forced to pay media companies to appear on their search. It's fairly unreasonable. But then again, Google can do what they do because they are that big. Australia is challenging that, and that in itself is actually quite commendable. I'm starting to feel like I should be on the side of the ACCC. Let me know your thoughts below. What's Google's next 4D chess move? And make sure to smash that like button and let Google know not to bury this video. Let's move on to our next topic. NVIDIA & Co is struck by the chip shortage that is affecting Nvidia, AMD, Tesla, and many other technology companies. There is currently a chip shortage across the entire globe, and NVIDIA & Co has had to temporarily stop taking orders for new HFC connections, as the network termination devices require those silicone chips. It's unknown as to when NVIDIA & Co will be able to resume installations, but there are many bigger players with bigger orders who will get their first dibs as batches of silicon are produced. It seems that 2020 was a giant year for technology companies producing an incredible amount of tech, and factories were unable to keep up. When's the last time you saw the PlayStation 5 in stock? Even TSMC is at capacity and will be spending billions to expand their production over the next couple of years. A lot goes into HFC, almost as much as the cost of fiber to the premises. However, the problem here is HFC copper cabling has a much lower lifespan, and so the question I have is, why doesn't NVIDIA & Co use this opportunity to dump HFC and roll out fiber? Obviously, fiber isn't affected by the chip shortage, I think, and if it is, it seems like HFC is the one they would want to get rid of and use a stock of silicon chips for fiber to the premises. In any case, if you're holding out for HFC to be connected and have yet to receive any confirmation, you may be left in limbo for now. HFC is a great technology, and with DOCSIS 3.1 we can reach gigabit speeds in some distant scenarios, but in any case, let me know your thoughts below, because do we need to roll out more copper technology? Let's move on to our next story, and it's Telstra! In fact, it's T22 strategy time. Time to restart the slimming down machine, and 1,400 positions will be cut as the pause on personnel reduction has been lifted. A Telstra spokesperson said, "We've briefed some of our teams on proposed changes that would see a net reduction of up to 1,425 roles across Australia and our international locations as we continue to transform Telstra." Transform. Such a positive word, right? At the same time this month, Roy Morgan survey of consumers has landed Telstra in the dirt. The survey has shown the top 10 trusted companies in Australia. Topping the charts are supermarkets, with Woolies and Coles in number 1 and 2, followed by Bunnings, Aldi and even Qantas at 5th place. And with everything happening now with Google Search and Bing, seeing Microsoft new to the top 10 at number 9 is very, very interesting. Now on the other side is the top 10 most distrusted companies, and oh my, I love this list. As its default number 1, we have Facebook, and then to a surprise some, and probably not surprise to many, Telstra is number 2, followed by Amazon, who is actually new to the list, News Corp, AMP, Rio Tinto, because of course, hey, you can't trust someone who goes around blowing up sacred Aboriginal sites when told not to, Huawei, Google, BP and Westpac. Imagine that the companies that end up in the news doing shitty things are in the top 10 most distrusted brands. What a surprise. Links below for more information. At the end of the day, if Telstra is only second to Facebook, it says a lot. Or the people who have been surveyed were the workers who were let go. Nonetheless, it's a pretty clear result. Let me know your thoughts below. Let's jump into our international tidbits, and it's a quick one this time, just like how quickly you can tap the like button on this video and subscribe. Got 'em. So Mustang has been a staple diet for motorheads for decades, but Ford hasn't always been the fastest moving company in regards to technology. However, that all has changed this week when Ford officially released the Mustang Mach-E. And so far, it sounds like a coffee type, but it looks to be a matchup to Tesla, even if it doesn't hit the same performance marks. So can it really be called a Mustang? Well, finally, a century-old automaker has made technology front and center in this Mustang and put away the baggage of an automaker becoming a technology company. And it seemed to work. The Mach-E has become a favorite because of that 100 years of experience as an automaker. The QA quality of the build has been absolutely impressive. However, performance-wise, it's no match for Tesla's performance packages. While range isn't too bad at 350 kilometers to 450 depending on the model type, its acceleration is not that of what I would call a Mustang. And at this stage, the beast can only do 6 seconds to 100, but there is a new Mustang coming out later with 0 to 100 in 3.5 seconds. Price starts at around 50,000 American dollars, and on that monetary bombshell, we have to end this episode. Thank you very much for jumping in. Make sure to like this video if you did and subscribe. If you'd like to support us, you can press the join button below and do that through Google. What do you know? Thanks and have a great week. Bye!